Want to create a Facebook business page for your company? I'll show you exactly how to set one up from scratch, and then we'll go through the important things you should optimize once your page is created. Once you're logged into Facebook, head over to Pages and select the option to create a new page. This is where we'll enter the basic details for the business. So let's start with the page name. I'd recommend using your actual business name. You don't want to turn this into a list of keywords. Then choose the category that best describes what your business actually does. Next, we've got the bio. This is a good opportunity to give people a really quick explanation of what you do. I'd recommend including the main service you provide, who you provide it for, and the area you cover where that's relevant. Now, Facebook gives us the option to add some of the other business details. I'd recommend filling out as much of this as you can. Add your website, phone number, email address, and your business address if you have a physical location or that's relevant to the business. These details are important because someone might find your Facebook page before they ever visit your website. Next, we can add our opening hours. I'd recommend keeping these accurate and actually updating them if your hours change. And if you're a business that doesn't really have set opening hours, or this section isn't relevant to the way you operate, you don't need to make something up just to fill the box. You can leave it blank rather than giving customers inaccurate information. Once you're happy with that, click Next and continue. Now we've got the page created, there are a couple of visual elements I'd recommend adding straight away. Start with your profile picture. For most businesses, your logo is going to be the obvious choice here, and I'd use a version that's simple enough to still be recognizable when it's displayed at a small size. Then add a cover image. This is a much larger space, so use something that actually represents the business, rather than just throwing in a generic stock image. Once those are in place, we're also going to set up the action button. For this example, I'm going to use Call Now because we're setting this up as a local service business. But choose the option that matches the action you actually want customers to take. If you want people to visit your website, for example, you might choose a different option. Once you've selected yours, continue through the setup. And that's your page created. Now we're going to look at how to optimize it, so potential customers can actually find the information they need. Head back into your page settings and find the page setup section. One thing I'd look at here is the page name. You should still keep your actual business name as the foundation, but if you can naturally include a descriptor that explains what the business does, that can be useful. For example, Smith Plumbing could potentially become Smith Plumbing Boiler and Heating Services, if that's a natural representation of the business and Facebook allows it. The important word here is natural. Don't turn your page name into a keyword list. If adding extra wording makes it look spammy or unlike the business's real-world name, leave it as it is. Next, let's set up the username. This is worth doing because it gives your page a much cleaner URL and makes it easier to share. Ideally, use your business name or the closest sensible variation that's available. Now let's make sure your business information is complete. These are the details a potential customer is most likely to look for when they land on your page. Now we're going back into page setup, and there's one setting here that I would definitely check. Make sure the page is set up as a business page rather than a creator page. A creator page is designed more around individuals who are building an audience around themselves or their content. If this is a page for a plumbing company, an accountant, a restaurant, a cleaning company, or another actual business, you want the business setup. Now I'd recommend going through these sections one by one and filling out as much of the information as is genuinely relevant to your business. Don't just complete the fields that Facebook forces you to complete and leave everything else empty. Think about this from the perspective of someone who has just landed on your page. The more complete and accurate your page is, the more useful it's going to be to both customers and Facebook itself. For example, here's the Facebook page for SEMrush. You can see that their description isn't just a generic "follow us for updates" type of message. It actually explains what the business does and naturally includes terminology around their products and services. That's the approach I'd take with your own page. Think about the words a real customer would use when describing your business, and naturally work those into your description and relevant sections. Don't stuff keywords everywhere. Just make sure you're clearly describing what you actually do. There's also one thing outside of Facebook that I'd recommend doing once your page is set up, and that's linking to it from other places. For example, we've got the Facebook page linked from the footer of the Uptick Digital website. If you've got a business website, consider adding a link to your Facebook page somewhere appropriate, such as your footer, contact page, or social media section. It makes it easier for visitors to find your social profiles and gives Facebook another connection between your website and your business page. And I'd do the same thing with your Google business profile. If you're a local business and you've got a Google business profile, make sure your Facebook page is linked where appropriate. The aim isn't to go around creating hundreds of random links. It's simply about making sure your important business properties are connected and easy for customers to navigate between. Your basic information is in place, but there's one more thing I'd set up to make it easier for potential customers to take the next step. The final thing I'd check is your action button. If you already set this up during the initial page creation, you don't need to do anything here. But if you skipped it earlier, this is where you can add one now. Choose the action that makes the most sense for your business. If you're trying to generate phone inquiries, use a call option. If you want people to visit your website, use the relevant website option. And if customers normally book an appointment or request a quote, choose the option that gets them closest to that action. There are also a couple of optional connections worth setting up if you already use them for your business. Before you call the page finished, let's run through a quick final check. And remember, you don't need to make your page absolutely perfect before you start using it. Get the important information right, make it look professional, and then improve it as your business grows. And that's it. You've now got a Facebook business page set up and ready for customers.